it focuses on your pupil. Then it tries, and then this particular eye tracker only measures where you're looking on the computer screen. So if you're looking at this side, and so on. So what I did with Professor Krishnamurthy is we designed an experiment. We were trying to see if students who were told that they were like the CFO would try and manipulate earnings in order to become the CEO. So we gave them a few scenarios and options, and we tracked where they were looking on the screen, and we were seeing if those who chose to be manipulative would have different eye movements than those who chose to be honest. Okay? We never finished analyzing the results. I still need to do that. But anyway, let me just show you the eye tracker. So, oh no, I gotta plug it in. It's right. So Lou's gonna demonstrate, okay? Okay. And it should work with glasses on, so this is good. Keep them on, yeah, keep them on. Yeah. So this thing is like, it looks like it came out of the 80s. I think we can get a better eye tracker now. It's only a few years old. All right. Such a long cord because you're supposed to be able to walk around with it. Yeah. All right, let's try it. So come here and put these. You know what? Let's make sure it's working first. So I have to start the eye tracker. And if we don't get an error, then we'll know it's still loading. Oh, good. It's working. Okay. So this computer screen is what you're going to look at. Okay. All right. So first, let's put this on. Put this on. Kind of over your feet. You have a big head. Okay. Other people don't think you have a secret. All right. Point that at your eye.
Oh my God.
That's it. Well, there. You know, I think the glasses really put out quite a reflection. Okay, so just take the glasses off for it. Oh, good. Now, see if you turn your head that way, and then this way. See the eye tracker stays on his eye. That's it. Now, if you're looking down too much, now, all right, so stand in the middle, How are you going to look at the screen? Okay. Okay, so you have to stay perfectly still, all right? So what we're going to do is, see, these eye trackers don't work unless you calibrate. So it'll work better if we calibrate it, so it'll know when he's looking at which part of the screen. So let's do a calibration. We're going to do a 9-point calibration. So it doesn't take too long. 9 points. Okay, ready? So some green squares are going to appear on the screen, and you just look at them, okay? Don't turn your head. Look at it. Calibration. Wow, one of these really got messed up. I don't know why. Like out here. Well, let's see how well it works. So let's open up this box here, right? So look at the top square. Are you looking at the top square? Yeah. Okay, look at the bottom. Try and get in the bottom square. Okay. Go left. Oh, there you go. Go to the right square. Go to the middle. Okay, it doesn't work very well. You know, and plus, well, it might be, I don't know how much bad you guys are. When we use this, usually they're sitting down, they have a nice big monitor in front of them. The calibration works really well. This is just to show you how it works, but it's not going to work very well. Okay, thank you. So I'll show you the experiment. Pretty cool, I guess. There we go. All right. So I can put this on my wife and tell her she has such a beautiful eye. So let me sit down. All right, so I'm going to recalibrate for me. So. Problems with this too. That's weird. Okay. Hey, where am I missing? So anyway, if I minimize this, I can start my experiment. Subject number, how about 5 by 5? Okay, so I read the scenario. I want to be the CEO, but I'm the CFO. Click here to begin. Right now it's tracking my eyes. So it's the first day on the job. I want to tell them how my projected earnings. So I want to impress them. So I'll click here. Then I want to cheat. And I'll click here. And I'll just go run through the scenarios. So what I'm doing here is I'm able to. The idea is, this didn't work very well, by the way, is I'm able to track what responses they're looking at. So, are they thinking more about 3% or 4% because that's where they're looking? Well, maybe they decide on 6% at the last minute, And it actually is dynamic, so based on my previous responses, it changed the story, right? So that's the one I selected, 72 million. So let's see, what do I want to pick? I can't remember all the questions, but I answer them all. Use them? Yeah, I'm going to use them to supply 60%. Okay. This doesn't look right because it's on a small screen. But basically I have to now type and justify the numbers I provided in the scenario and try to convince the board of directors what I said was true. So this is like the text mining component of actually the eye tracker is turned off. This is the text mining component of the experiment where we get to analyze their response. So I chose to do what I did because I wanted to yo. Okay, and so I have the summary of the results in a table form, the summary of their choices in a table form, and I also have the script for all of the questions, so they could go back and read what they did and then write a response. So that was the idea. So I click submit, and then I do these, these behavioral studies, you always have to do manipulation checks, right? You also have to check on sort of demographic information. So what are you? So did they actually believe, they were a CFO? How hard did they try to write a convincing report to the board of directors? Okay. What's your primary language? This is a good one. And then it breaks, but it saved all the data. So I have all this data. All these data files. This is what the eye tracking data looks like. So let's not. So it measures, I think it's 60 hertz, which means 60 times per second. It measures where your eye is, measures where you're looking, the height and width of your pupil, and some other things. And the way I did this is I wrote this code that basically, this data file is created by the eye tracking software. I didn't create it. But what you can do is you can add a column at the end called under marker. And what I do is I say, well, every time when they start the experiment, let's add something that says start experiment. So I know where they start. And when they click when they answer the first question, add another marker. So that's what I know. I know at each point in time when they move from question to question. So if I scroll down, or if I search for it, I think it's called start experiment. Start. Yeah, there it is. So at line 14,000, which would be 14,000 divided by 60 seconds into the experiment. That's when they start. And then they go down and answer questions. And so I have coordinates for where they look. So, any questions about the eye tracker? No. So you can actually take this data file and do some different stuff with it. They have some software in here to analyze the data file. Let's see. Called data analysis. So I can, I think, open a data file. And let's just pick mine. Let's see what's there. 555. Alright. So I think I can play everything. So it shows where I looked. And it's just reading the file and plotting everywhere I looked. Then you can do different things. It has different measures. Saccades are your motion from one point to another. So it can give you a measure of that. And fixation points, that's where I stare for more than a second or something like that. So maybe you're interested in not only where they look, but how many different places they fixated, or what are the different places where they fixated. All we've looked at so far in this data set are the locations that they or what we did is we looked at the the amount of time they spent in a certain area. So that's what we looked at. And we didn't find what we thought we'd find, so we were a little disappointed. But another thing I want to look at is the pupil. Okay, so the theory is when you're lying, you're going to get a response that's similar to what's called the fight or flight response. So fight or flight, like if you feel threatened and you need to flee, then like all the blood, the adrenaline, you get the adrenaline rush, the blood rushes to your head, and actually your pupils dilate. And it's like a natural response. Like your pupils dilate to let in more light so you can see more detail. And so when you're lying, supposedly you get this response more than when you're not lying, when you get nervous and things like that. So my next thing I want to do is capture I already have the measure of the pupil size, but see if there's a relationship between the pupil size and when people are telling, or when people are stretching the truth based on their responses. You guys can probably think of 10 other things I could do with the data. It's just a lot of data. Okay, any questions? No? Yes? How much do you think this is worth? How much money would you pay for this? Not you, but how much money would you have the university pay for this? 2,000? Well, it was about 7,500.
How many? 500?
It's because, it's not that this is worth that much money, but a lot of people developed it, so you got to pay for their health plans and their families and all that stuff. It's a lot of R&D. Now, when these are mass produced, this would be much cheaper, right? So, the NeuroIS paper. I only have like 5 or 6 slides on this. So how many of you had heard of some of these tools before reading this paper? Okay. Have you used any of them?
I'm curious about it. Never do.
You're curious about them, but never used them. All right. I'm glad you're curious about it because this is my question for you guys. Okay. And I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to do this. So I want you to think of 1 or 2 or 3 ideas in accounting or accounting information systems, some sort of behavior. Are any of you going to be behavioralists? None of you like behavioral studies? You like archival studies? Because you're accounting majors. Well, you have to think a little differently then. How would you use one of these tools? Either, what happened to mine? Okay. How would you use an eye tracker? How would you use skin conductance response? Facial electromyography, electrocardiogram, fMRI. How would you use one of these in an accounting study? Probably a behavioral study, right? So think about it for 1 or 2 minutes and write down your idea or type it down. Type it in. And then I'm going to ask you what your idea is, okay? So if you need help, go back to the paper and read about the tool you're interested in. Because this is kind of like a continuous auditing in a way. In the 1980s, a few researchers, including our own, were talking about continuous auditing, about having real-time analysis and decision making. And now, 25, 30 years later, we're actually doing it. So for the past 5 years or so, people have been saying, you know, there needs to be this new area of information systems called neuroinformation systems. And for the past 3 years, people have been saying, well, it should be neuro accounting information systems. We should be using eye trackers, fMRI, thermal imaging, all this kind of stuff in our research. So if you guys want to think of a couple ideas, then write them down, and I'm going to call on each of you to give me your idea. Okay. Anyone have any thoughts? Want to share their idea? Oh, right, Lou.
Okay.
Why don't you start us off?
So because I'm doing the visualization things, so I have the thought that by using the eye track, you can test if those new visualization software like Tableau can increase like the auditor or the users of some financial reporting, their attention to a specific presentation or tutorial or something like that. Because in my opinion, when you interesting, like for example, for these slides, your eye move continuously from this part to that part. If you're not interested or you zoom out, you just look still or just didn't see the slide at all. So by using the eye track, you can set up an experiment for example the senior auditor when they do the tutorial to the new auditor. So by using two different visualization software, you can test if the new software can draw more attention from the new auditors.
Yeah, sounds good. I like it. That's probably better than any idea I've heard. If we also include the last time I taught this class. So, but it's a hard question too. I mean, you just happen to have a natural fit for using an eye tracker, your research. So, sounds good. Everyone understood what he said? All right. Anyone else want to share?
I illustrated 6 points. The first one, because the socks require
Oh, you have 6 projects?
ideas about the just suddenly appear in my mind.
Oh, okay.
The first one is because SOX section 404 require the external auditors to efficiently use the internal auditors internal controls assessment, something like that. So in this process, this tool could help to find the effective way to link external auditor and internal auditor. I mean, what kind of perspective the external concerns and the internal auditor cannot have enough work, something like that.
So you want to detect the concerns of the external auditor?
Yeah. The second one is.
So you want to like basically figure out what they're paying attention to?
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, you demonstrated the framework of the internal control. The framework is because it's a graph and different point.
Right.
You can use eye tracking to tell what kind of a part the external auditor pay attention to.
Sure.
And I think it could be a good tool to help effective connect link.
Okay. So give me one more idea. You had 6, right?
Okay. The second is what is the difference among different stakeholders' concerns about the financial report, like income statement? There's a different side. I mean, different item, and what they are eyes tracking first focus on, like ROA or ROE or something like that.
So both of you have talked about things that could also be measured by just asking someone a question, right?
Yeah.
Like you could say which visualization is more helpful, and you could say, you know, what most concerns you, right?
Yeah.
So one of the supposed advantages of these types of tools is they're getting right at the brain, okay? Supposedly there are these physiological responses that we're having. One is eye movement, one is the electrical skin conductivity or whatever, one is the heat coming out of our face for thermal imaging, one is our brain waves. These are things that we supposedly don't really control. They're just occurring, and they're a direct window into our thought processes, or some maybe things that we're not even thinking about, maybe things in our subconscious. So you're saying an eye tracker is a way to get past the subjective self-reporting that we have to usually rely on, right? Instead, we're just gonna measure where they're looking, and that's going to tell us what they're thinking. So, in addition to your studies, you would also have a questionnaire, and you'd probably ask them the normal way this type of research is usually done. Which is most concerns you? Which do you like the best? And that would validate your results too with the eye tracker. Or maybe you'd say the eye tracker is better than this old method of surveying. Okay. Anyone else? You know, we're just gonna go down the line. Okay.
So in continuous auditing, we identify a lot of outliers, right? So I was thinking of the information overload that the auditor faces, and I was thinking if there is, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Professor Hussein's one of the dissertation essays. He develops that methodology to process the outliers.
Yeah, I've seen it presented.
Yeah, so I was thinking we can use an EKG to see if there's a difference in the information overload with the many outliers, which is the traditional continuous auditing versus, after processing of the outliers.
So you're saying EKG will measure does that measure the overload in your mind, your cognitive overload?
Well, yeah, because in the paper, the authors say that when you face information overload, you may have a fast heartbeat, or you seem stressed.
Yeah. So repeat your idea again. So you'll use EKG to measure overload, information overload, and whether there's too many data points.
Well, yeah, it's like the before and afters. Like the before would be the traditional continuous auditing, measure through EKG if there's information overload, and then the after. After
you've identified a smaller set of exceptions to look at?
Right.
Interesting. It's good. So I like that you didn't say eye tracker. But you know what? If you guys say eye tracker, it's fine. So it's fine. I just like the diversity. All right, go ahead. Do you have did you come up with something?
Give me 1 second.
Okay,
the
1 second.
first.
Not literally, but okay. Well, only one Skippy per class. Okay, so go ahead.
Okay. I'm thinking about merging and acquisition market, in which a company buys part of stock of another company, and sometimes it is very hard to distinguish whether the fixed price is friendly or hostile. And if it is a friendly price, the acquisition might have a lot of probability to succeed. properly. So you can make the arbitrage to a lot of money. So I'm thinking about using this functional magnetic resonance imaging to detect whether the offer is fair or unfair. So,
Wow. You know, they'll have to lay down in a machine. And, yeah, that's fine.
So I'm
That's how
not
it
sure
works.
I understand the process of the technology.
Right, I understand. No, that's a really good idea. Thanks.
I think there's been two developments since Enron. One is Enron says that basically the CEO doesn't know what the CFO is doing. So they just gave that argument and that they give the power to the CFO. And also it's that basically they need, so since Enron stocks, there has been this development that you also have to have CEOs and other people in the board of directors in the companies understand like what complex financial instruments you have in your company, or have a general understanding of basically how those things work. So I was thinking about using some brain imaging tool that could actually test, because they're probably prone, a lot of them are prone to say, like if they are detected in the case of fraud, they will say, oh, we didn't really understand it, or we just relied on somebody else who's actually the responsibility. So I think it'd be good to use some actual kind of neural tools to give these, I guess, higher management complex financial instruments and see how they respond to, if they actually understand it, or what their brain activity is like when it's.
So if it's like this, beep, beep, then they don't understand anything, right?
No, I think.
All right.
I read one paper that mentioned that
Barely hear you.
the weather in Central Park influence investors' moods, so they trade differently. And so that influence stock prices and the market action. So I was thinking maybe use some kind of tools like do an experiment and show different images of different weather and see whether they really influence the mood and
Just show them like a picture of like a sunny day or a stormy day.
yeah, whether they will react differently in regards to their transaction behavior.
You know what you should do is just on the outside of their office, just put like a big picture, so when they're looking outside, or they think it's a sunny day or a stormy day or something.
And also maybe the SEC should adopt this technology where the investment managers whether they are doing some earnings manipulation, like in the pension data, like the managers need to say the actual assumptions as discount rate, and most of the rate are kind of subjective, so you can manipulate without like the real discount rate. Maybe you are really manipulating, but maybe you are just kind of actually just do it without knowing the real thing. So maybe, or like other can do manipulation effective. And also I read the paper about like the CEO's appearance would influence their maybe compensation or something like that. Maybe also like show like show the CEOs they are the same capable of doing things, but they just look differently, and see how the shareholders react and how the investors react.
That's interesting. So if you look like Bernie Sanders, then you don't look very capable at all. But if you look like Mitt Romney, okay. I love talking about politics. Not really. Don't want to offend anyone.
Oh yeah. Actually, I think some tools about psychology could be used in behavior finance. You see, there are a lot of psychological models in behavior finance, such as mental accounting or representative bias or conservative bias. A lot of this, and this could affect investors' behavior. So, as Leon stated, we can do an experiment, to some guys and give them a simulated environment about stock exchange, and then we can use some of these tools to test whether they have this psychological bias, such as mental accounting, if they do, because this such as mental accounting is related to prospect theory, and this is not a standard economic theory. I mean, the expected utility theory. Okay, they are mutually, so they have different ways to describe the phenomenon. So we can use this to test whether this investors choose which thinking method. Okay, it's just my imagination because I really don't know how to use this. But I think we can get some data from this and to test it, because previous a lot of people did an experiment by using questionnaire. We can combine the questionnaire and this to conduct research behavior and to research a treatment effect.
Right. So I mean, the idea is with these types of tools, and I've just said this, and we'll say it because you brought it up again. Move beyond the questionnaire and go to like a unbiased window to the mind.
Yeah.
Try to see what someone's really thinking.
Yeah.
So that's the promise of these types of tools.
Yeah, it's a direct way to measure some variable or some process.
So I suppose that you can say in general that if there's a study that uses a questionnaire or is based on a questionnaire, then you could probably supplement it with one of these tools.
Yeah.
And hopefully the tools become less obtrusive. You know, this eye tracker is just huge. All I can think about is that I'm wearing an eye tracker, right? It's got to affect the results. But there are some non-contact, non-intrusive tools out there. So when I was a PhD student, they borrowed this laser called a laser Doppler vibrometer, and it would sit like 6 feet away from the subject. It would point at somewhere on their skin, near their carotid artery area, and it just measured vibrations. Like any tiny, minuscule vibration, it could measure. And you could derive information from those measures, like heart rate and like respiratory measures and maybe blood pressure, I'm not sure. So there's unobtrusive ways to be measured. Okay. Well, let's see what slides I have. I'm pretty much done for the day. See? That's the idea. You cannot really, it's difficult to manipulate the results from these instruments. Okay, that's the idea. Some of these weaknesses will go away with time. So as the instruments become used more and more, it'll be cheaper and cheaper, and they'll be less invasive. And the measurements will become better and better at analyzing the data that come out. Okay. All right. So, any questions? We're going to end a little bit early today, but Edward's holding you back.
Few people want to participate in this kind of experiment.
Few people want to participate in the experiments?
This kind of experiment, like
Yeah, they get paid.
payment is not enough, is right?
Might be. You know, in our eye tracker study, I think we were paying them like $20 for 40 minutes. Maybe it's $50. In one study we did, they could earn $100 in like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't need 10,000 subjects, right? You don't have, the N is much smaller than what you get in archival research, 90,000, whatever. Now here we'll have 30 to 100, I don't know.
But if the experiment is very sensible, that's very hard.
If it's very sensible,
Yeah, that means
like sensitive,
yeah.
it'll be very hard.
Nobody wants to. Some people will hide their emotion.
Well, that's right. That's the idea of these instruments also, right? So if you're asking questions that are sensitive, and these instruments, maybe they'll lie on the questionnaire, but we'll know the truth because these instruments will, you can't lie to them. Your heartbeat doesn't lie, right? Or your brain waves. Yeah.
Like the should tell whether the person is lying or not. Like because I was thinking like the first one. Like,
Wait, you're watching TV?
yeah, like they use a polygraph. I don't know what it's called, but they first will ask you a few like basic questions. And if you lie on the basic questions, then it will be hard to detect whether you are lying.
Oh, the polygraph examination. Yeah, well, they ask you the baseline questions that you're supposed to be telling the truth to. Like, what color are the walls in this room? Or is the door open or closed? Then later on, they'll say, did you kill this person? And if you say no, but you did, then your readings will look different than when you answered the question about the color of the walls in the room. So whatever you say is supposed to match how you appeared in that question. But,
Some people can bypass that.
yeah, some people are very good at bypassing.
Like access sociopaths, they can.
Yeah. Or they're trained. Or you put a thumbtack in your toe. You put a pin in your toe, so it messes. I don't know. Well, anyway, thanks guys for coming today. We get out a little early.